Despite all the uncertainty around the Auburn football program, the Auburn Tigers bring in another talented offensive lineman.
Well, Zach, I actually just finished crushing some chicken parm, and I am freaking ready to rock and roll.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Quick abbreviated emergency pod as Auburn lands offensive lineman Clay Wedin. And joining me to talk about that, of course, John Garcia, Locked On Recruiting Insider, and the man over college football recruiting at Sports Illustrated. Thank you to LinkedIn Jobs for being the official college football recruiting sponsor across the Locked On College Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Check it out, linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. John, always a good news when you get a commit, but when it's an offensive lineman coming out of high school that you're actually getting, Auburn fans perk up even a little bit more. It seems like most places are projecting Clay Wedin to be an interior offensive lineman. But still, you take what you can get. Your initial reaction when you saw Clay Wedin decommit from Michigan State, and then a few days later pop up that beautiful graphic saying he has been committed to the Auburn Tigers.
Well, look, back in the spring and early summer months, we were talking about Wedin as a guy that, man, he fits Auburn. We knew he loved Auburn. We knew the family really liked Auburn. So we were viewing that recruitment as a really big miss, not only because he's an important player at a position of need in your region, right? Alabama, Georgia, Florida. This is a Tampa kid. So he checks all those boxes. But again, it felt like a layup. It felt like this was going to be Auburn's race to lose. So when he committed to MSU, that was the surprise. It was like, oh, well, he obviously went up there, loved the visit. So we'll see. But due diligence here, very much modern recruiting being shown by this Auburn staff to stay with it, to get him back on campus at the beginning of this month, spurring that Michigan State decommitment. And basically, like you said, at that point, it really felt like it was just a matter of when he would commit to Auburn and not if. And I think what's important here beyond the physical, which I know we'll get to, is that, again, the fit here. This is an Auburn-type kid, country kid in Tampa, which is not very common, very much to himself, about his business type of guy. Everyone we know around him, raves about the work ethic, about how mature and business-like of an approach he takes to just about everything. So with this verbal commitment at this time, I think it speaks volumes to the type of kid Clay is and how he views Auburn, not necessarily Brian Harsin, Will Friend, and that crew, but Auburn by itself. I think this is one of those type of recruits that even if there's a change, you have a legitimate chance to hold on to him. And from now on, that needs to be, valued higher from the Auburn perspective.
Yeah, we talked about this last time you were on, John. These kids are savvy. A lot of these kids know the game. They know the landscape. And they've heard the pitch from people that were trying to get them to not pick Auburn, right? Like, you don't know who's going to be there next year. And I think at this point of the season, that's even clearer now than ever. So you got to think, I assume Will Friend was his main recruiter. Like, Will Friend's probably not going to be on campus at Auburn next year. But you feel good about the fact of, okay, Clay is committing to Auburn. He's not committing to a specific staff.
100%. Because this is a kid who, look, 6'6", 280, options across the country, still had official visits in his back pocket that he could have taken before making this decision. So to me, with him being plenty aware of all of those likelihoods and having all those options, picking Auburn now to me says that, yes, he is the type of prospect that has a chance to stick it out with the next coaching staff if and when all of that goes down. And again, that's what you want. And I think there's a lot of advantages towards recruiting players like this, obviously, right? A kid who's flexible, open-minded, that will translate to his game as well, right? Like you said, most people view him as an interior guy, but he's played left tackle and right tackle over the last 2 years at Carrollwood Day School, which has a boatload of talent in the Tampa area. So he's got this versatile on-field ability as well, and clearly open-minded off the field on top of that. So I would say of the 11 verbal commitments right now Auburn has on board, excluding the in-state guys, because, there's a little bit more pull there.
Sure.
I would say Clay is probably the most likely to stick with AU should a coaching change go down here in short order.
Yeah, and I think the timing for that makes sense. And I think you can make the argument for all of the offensive line. I mean, Braden Joyner, that dude loves Auburn. Like, I don't think he loves, he may love Brian Harsin, but he loves Auburn, and he's an Auburn kid. And then Janoris Wilson, another Florida guy, he committed later in the process too. Like, he had to somewhat see the writing on the walls that a potential change could be coming as the head man at Auburn. So this is a class that needed to have a bunch of offensive linemen in it. And I think the 3 offensive linemen they have so far are solid to the Tigers. Would you agree with that?
I would, and they're all different, right? Joyner's obviously a center, no doubt, interior guy. Janoris is a swing tackle who has an interior floor, but he's a bit raw. And then Clay's kind of the opposite. He's a swing interior guy with a right tackle floor who is a little bit more advanced and polished, very efficient in how he moves, great punch, and he's got that classic nasty O-line mentality when he has an opportunity to get some hands on you. So they're very different, and they're all very big as well, which is always important. So, yeah, I think this is, easily the best O-line haul Auburn's put together in quite a few cycles.
So 11 hard commitments for Auburn so far. They are now back in the top 50 when you look at the composite rankings and things like that. How much does that matter when a new coach comes in? You got to think maybe a new coach, and it feels weird having this discussion, right, John, because Brian Harsin is still the head coach. So I guess assuming change happens, how much should Auburn fans expect guys to follow the new coach? And obviously it depends on who it would be. And also, how much turnover may you see in this class?
Right. I think 2 things immediately pop into my mind, Zach. One, are you bringing in a coach who's already in the college ranks with a recruiting class dedicated to him, right? So this is the Lincoln Riley going from Oklahoma to USC, right? A lot of defections, a lot of kids I guess
let's throw out some hypotheticals. Let's throw some hypotheticals. And Jeff Grimes, who is an OC at a Big 12 school, or Hugh Freeze, who is the head coach of a Group of 5 school. Somebody like that.
Right. So in that case, you would wonder, philosophically, how many of those commitments does this coach feel like can play at a higher level, right? Big 12 to SEC, obviously independent Group of 5 to SEC, you would see a jump like that. Or if the coach is pulling from the NFL ranks or somewhere outside the box where he doesn't have high schoolers attached to him at this point, it becomes, and maybe in both cases, it becomes kind of a self-assessment. Okay, I just got the Auburn job. I've got 11 verbal commitments right now. Do they satisfy what I think from a measurables perspective, academically, schematically? Do they fit what we might be able to do here or what we want to do here? I mean, all those things will be factored in. So the more versatile prospects, the scheme versatile prospects like Clay Wedin in particular, have that much more of a shot on their own end holding on to that scholarship. Because I know we always look at it as, well, who decommits because they don't want to go anymore? Well, a lot of times it's the program, right? It's the new staff saying, hey, we don't necessarily think these guys fit. And there's a nice way to do it from a professional standpoint and nudge the kid out of the class and say, hey, take a look at some of your other offers. So it really does work both ways there. But I think with Wedin in particular, he's one that I probably wouldn't worry as much about defecting, at least on his own.
Sure. John Garcia, thank you so much for your time. As always, really, really appreciate it. How can people check out everything you have going on?
SI.com/college, of course, here on the Locked On Network, as well as Twitter, John Garcia _JR. Great slate of games this weekend. I'm sure we'll be talking about it.
Yes, we will. Once again, John Garcia, be sure to check him out. And we'll be back on Sunday to recap Auburn and Ole Miss. This has been Locked On Auburn.